there are a lot of entities which stand to profit from the transgender stuff that's going on, the rejection of biological sex. Planned Parenthood is one of the leading ones that stands to profit. Their sex alteration business, giving dangerous, sterilizing hormones to kids, facilitating sex change surgeries, it's growing by the day. At Students for Life, we've been pointing out that, Planned Parenthoods, they're not stupid over there. If they can't kill kids via abortion, they know what their next step is. It's to sterilize. You sterilize your children, mutilate your children with artificial hormones and other services, which we can actually argue is really fulfilling the original envisioned intent of Planned Parenthood by its founder, Margaret Sanger, who was a known eugenicist. Today, my guests are three lovely ladies who understand that womanhood is not a costume, that woke gender ideology is a dangerous sham, and that parents have to rise up to keep our kids safe from a predatory industry that's set on carving up our kids, that's waging an all-out war on parental rights. Britt, Carrie, Melissa head up the group Battle Cry, a brand new organization founded in 2023 in response to gender ideology cult systemically erasing women and the hostile war on truth that's invading our schools and churches, government halls, and businesses. Ladies, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having us, Kristan.
Thank you, Kristan.
It's so awesome. I follow you guys on Instagram, so it's been awesome to see what you all are doing and how outspoken you all are as mothers, and really warning the rest of America as to what's really happening with gender ideology in our schools, especially with our kids, and how they're this transgender movement is really targeting our kids. You just were on Jesse Waters' show on Fox News, and I thought that was a fantastic platform for you to share. I guess the first thing I want to kind of ask you is, obviously my mission in life is to see the end of abortion. That's the mission the pro-life movement, embraces. What do you feel is the crossover between what you all are doing in combating, this woke gender ideology, and then what we're doing in the pro-life movement to save human lives, to promote the very fact that all human beings are persons and they should have a fundamental human right to exist?
It's something that is actually core to the battle cry, is to contend for the right to life for the unborn. And because, like you said, we are a newer organization, we haven't fully shown all of our cards, but I guess we just did. So for all of you who are shocked to find out, the battle cry is completely pro-life, from conception to birth to the grave. A human is a human. There's no point in any of those moments that a human is not fully human. And what we have seen is that the cult who is coming after our kids outside of the womb is also coming after our kids inside of the womb. So there's such a beautiful linking of arms as warriors with you and your work in what we're doing, because we are contending for the kids who are born, and then the cult comes after them while you are contending for the kids inside the womb.
Yeah. You also have to think about too, like the family, right? This outdated concept of the nuclear family. Like, we need nuclear families in the pro-life movement, because that's how we make new human beings, and that's how we populate our earth. Have you guys noticed this assault on just the nuclear family? And is that really why you guys got started with the battle cry?
Yeah, I think that, this all started in 2023. There was a little girl named Rebecca Phillips, and she was in the locker room at the YMCA. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, Kristan, but it blew up. It was international news. And we as three moms said, we have to do something about this. There was a man in the women's locker room, and this poor 17-year-old little girl was hiding in the shower naked when a man exposed himself to her. But he said he was a woman. And we as three mothers sat here and we thought, how is this possible? How is this possible as a society? We've been so deceived. We've been so deceived to believe that a man can just magically become a woman. And we said, absolutely not. We are taking back language. We are not going to play the pronoun patty cake game anymore, because when you give them an inch, they take a mile, Kristan. And so that's really when the battle cry birth was on this idea that we have to save womanhood. The feminists are completely silent in all of this, and they're nowhere to be found. And so
that's right. They're like literally, I don't even know where they're at. Like even on TV interviews and newspaper reviews, like they're not even being quoted. Like they're like running away.
Yes, they're running away. They are totally silent because they have created the monster. They have created this monster. They wanted men and women so equal that now there are no differences between men and women. And here at the Battle Cry, we are the final feminists, and we're reclaiming that. We are reclaiming feminism and saying, hey, the real feminists are pro-life. We are pro-women. We are pro-children. We are pro-family. We are pro-Second Amendment. Shocker. And so we are reclaiming this new idea of feminism, and we are telling it like it is.
Yeah. What are your all's ages? Are we all the same age, I guess? I'm 38. Yeah. I don't know. Are we around the same age?
I'm 21 over
I'm
here.
36. I just turned 36.
I'm the senior in the group. I had a geriatric pregnancy.
I hate that term. That's like the worst term ever, by the way. No, I was just thinking about that because you were talking about reclaiming feminism, Carrie. And that's what I've been asking. Like when I was in college, like you wanted to be a feminist. I was like, yes, I'm a pro-life feminist. The first wave of feminists, of suffragists, they were pro-life as well. And like, it was cool to be like a feminist. And like, I don't know if you like even look back to like 2016 and you had the whole women's march, and like we had signed up to be in the women's march because it was a women's march. So of course, and then we were uninvited, and there was like this whole question of can pro-lifers be feminists? And we were like, the feminists got together and had to vote and said no. But like now they've just like dissipated, and their original intent from like the 60s of destroying the nuclear family has come home to roost, and this is where we're at. I mean, I don't know, it's just amazing. Like we need to have like a scavenger hunt for these people. Like where are the feminists? Because I can't find them.
Especially when it comes to women. I mean, we see these little girls, their trophies being taken away by men. And the women are silent, but yet all of a sudden we have Bruce Jenner as our champion for women. Absolutely not. We did not give him that authority. He is not a champion for women. He has taken trophies from women. He won Women of the Year, and now all of a sudden he wants to say he's our champion. No, we don't accept that, Bruce. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and one thing we wanted to point out, like with everything that we've learned, we talked about the YMCA incident. When we zoom out, we find that the cult, they're all the same players. So they are the eugenists, they are the liars. They want to tell you as a woman, you're not strong enough to have a natural childbirth and raise a child and still have aspirations, which is what we are all doing here at the Battle Cry. And you're doing, we are present mothers, and we are also fighting and engaging in this war. But these cult gods are the liars of all time. They have deceived everyone, and the only way to engage and fight back in what we're going through is to keep speaking the truth and calling their bluff, and just say, no, a man can't be a woman, you're ridiculous. And anybody who goes along with that, you are a victim of the cult, sadly.
I mean, you think about that, like 10 years ago, that statement, no, a man cannot be a woman, would be a completely acceptable statement. But today, that statement would get you fired, canceled, banned on social media. You can lose friends, neighbors. It's amazing how fast. I don't know if you have noticed this. Like, I was out in the court when the Obergefell decision came out. I was here in DC for something, and it was almost like the day after. I remember I was reading the Washington Post, and there was an art. So like the day after gay marriage legalized in all 50 states, the next day it was transgender. Like how fast the LGBTQ lobby
Kristan.
moved on this.
Yes. And what we've found as we've been going through the history, because that's what we have been, where we started in all of this, was everyone's wondering where the heck this all came from. Why are we seeing drag queens spreading in front of our kids? Why are we seeing pornographic books in our schools? Everyone's asking the questions, but then it's like an echo chamber of questions, and no one's actually diving in. Like, where are the journalists, researching where this all came from? And so we said, we're going to start to dig into the history and try to figure out like how this happened and why it feels so sudden. And what we are shocked to find out in our research is that it was very slow and very methodical from the 40s, really, 40s America. And then it was very fast. They put everything in place. And that's why we refer to it as a cult, because it was a cult takeover that was methodical, intentional, and very slow and driven to their end goal. And now in 2023, we are seeing it realized. But it was slow and then very sudden at the end.
Because what they did is they changed American law, and then they waited for culture to catch up, so that once culture realized this is, some people realized it's crazy, the rest are going along with it. We're already locked in place where trans men have super rights over women.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. I mean, especially when I was reading something this week about these OBGYNs who are hand selected from the Kaiser Family Foundation. And it was a total bogus survey of hand selected sexual and reproductive health clinicians. But it was interesting to even read some of the stats from that study, because they were talking about the increase in sterilizations in long form contraceptives / also abortifacients, IUDs, because of the fall of Roe versus Wade. And this whole, and I know certainly from my conversations on campuses, you have a whole generation of young people, and there's been a lot of polls released about young people who don't want to have kids, or they're saying they're going to significantly delay having children to their late 30s or 40s, which is then labeled a geriatric pregnancy, and they're considered high risk. So you have kids who are like, I don't want to have kids at all, never. It's selfish to have kids. You're a selfish person if you choose to have kids. And so you think about that, and then this cult of gender ideology, transgender ideology. I mean, we are going to see, and then you look at the facts that we're below replacement rate now in America. We were 2.1, then we're 1.9. And I've seen some numbers lately that's even fewer than 1.9 children per woman in America, which means our population is going to continue to shrink. It's going to get worse here. It's certainly not going to get better.
That is so true. It's sobering. And I think that's where the church has a responsibility. We're Christians and very passionate about our faith, and we're unashamed of saying that. And we've talked through the mess that we're making, as founders of the Battle Cry. Like, what is the answer? Because it's such a disaster. And like you just said, we're slaughtering our kids in the womb. So we're dealing with on the other side of that, the repercussions on the family and the women who go through abortions and the damaging effect that inevitably leaves. And then we also have families who are seeing their kids caught up in this cult of gender ideology, and kids being butchered and sliced and diced. And so then we also have that as the carnage. So we have total wreckage on the scene. And the answer as a Christian is the church better show up. It's time for the church to wake up to what's going on, and to stop hiding behind sermons on Sunday and keeping their people in the pews. It's time to engage radically in the culture like we're supposed to, and step in and say, this is war, and we need to step onto the battlefield as the kingdom that's supposed to be building and not protecting like an exclusive club. And that honestly, that's the answer at this point.
I mean, that has to be the answer, because it's not going to get better unless the church engages. I guess that's perfect into my next question for you guys, is this silent majority. Like, we definitely have a silent majority in our country. When you have one-on-one conversations with people, and I'm sure you all do this all the time, who, just like you, are like, wait a minute, what's going on here? How do you guys think, or what do you guys think is the best way we can, mobilize this silent majority that's like shaking their heads, that's liking your all's podcasts and your Instagram videos? How do we move them from just simply like clicking like to, I don't know, click share, and then maybe go to a school board meeting? Like, what do you think is the pathway there?
We need to talk about the definition of love, and what is loving? What's loving as a Christian? What's loving as an individual? It is not loving to see an oncoming train headed towards a child who's standing on the track and just go, gosh, I don't want to bruise them by shoving them out of the way. I wouldn't want to offend them when I have to catapult them off the train track. So I'm just going to stay here and watch. So the church, who Britt just spoke about, and the rest of society who believes in morality, even if you don't serve or practice any religion, you have to recognize that this train is headed for your kids. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable when you plummet your body in front of it and they hit the ground on the other side. They're going to get some bruises. It's going to be painful. That is love. Love is not silent in the face of violence. It does not watch this horrifying, everything that's happening in our society to me is horrifying. And we just can't sit back and say, well, you know, I want to be a peacemaker. No, there's time for peace and time for war. And that's why we're called the battle cry, is because we are wanting to normalize this terminology that we are in a war. It's not just over gender ideology. It's for humanity. It is it is humanity against the cult. The cult wants you dead. And everybody who is complicit in going along with this message of, you know, we have to be loving and peaceful, you're not going to make it to the end of this war.
Boom. Nope. Amen, girlfriend.
Amen.
So truthful. Yes.
So get out there and get some bruises.
Yeah,
while you're
and also
actively
I think,
loving.
Kristan, something important that we've all had to do is we've had to count the cost. You know, we had to say, like, we are going into the lion's den, and what is it worth it to stay silent, knowing what's on the other side, which means society gets a lot worse and we're leaving a bigger fight for our kids? Or is it worth it to be called names, to be labeled stupid titles like the sticks and stones, and to actually do something, to show up and to do our best to fight back? And we all decided, you know what, like, sign me up. We're going to go onto the front lines. And that's what we encourage every mom and dad across America to do, is to count the cost, to decide, is it worth it to stay silent, or is it worth it to be called names and to get out there? That's honestly, at the end of the day, that's the question.
Your question, Kristan, is such a good question, because we get that a lot. Like, what can people do? What does getting on the battlefield look like? And so one of our first things that we did at the Battle Cry is say, we are going to do call to action. Like, the mom that's in Kansas, the mom that's in, you know, a little small town in Iowa, what can she do? And so we look at, like, what happened with Target and Bud Light and KitchenAid and the ridiculous Dylan Mulvaney. And we are seeing that once we do call to actions, people respond. They are waiting for a leader to say, hey, here's what you can do besides just like and share on Instagram. You know, send the owner, the CEO of this company an email and watch what happens. And that is so empowering, because we are seeing that we are winning because people are rising up and getting on the battlefield, and not just talking, but they're actually doing something about it.
What have you guys seen since you all launched the Battle Cry? Have you seen some examples of, you know, success that you would measure to say, you know, this is a tangible success or proof of parents and Christians mobilizing and getting active beyond, I guess, Bud Light and Target, which, I mean, I guess Target, it'll be a little bit longer to see if all of us can hold out from going to Target for indefinitely.
Yes, we can.
It's a struggle.
We can do it. We might. We
can do it.
My
husband was like,
back in the Garden of Eden, naked, you know, sewing fig leaves.
We were trying to get special shoes for my son, and he texted me yesterday. He was like, all right, so the doctor said they're at Target, and I was like, all right, just try to find them online, please.
No, you cannot go to Target.
No, don't do it.
I know. I'm resisting. Well,
but
hey, I mean, are there other
question about, like, have we seen it? We actually just had a member of a school board on for a podcast with us yesterday. And we threw it up on Instagram Live. So if you go there, you can see it on the battlecry_US. But it's pretty cool. So Temecula is just north of us, and they're a little teeny tiny school district. And they just flipped some seats in their school board, because we have been encouraging parents to show up and to run for school board, because we believe in the grassroots movement. And we're not going to go out and topple Gavin Newsom in California. It's not going to happen. He's very protected. He's got a strong war chest. But we can go after the small guys and start there, and then start building. And parents have been responding and running for these school seats. And we saw that in Temecula, where 3 seats just flipped, and it made national headlines. You may have seen it, because there was conversation at one of these school boards just recently where they challenged the ideology that's being pushed into curriculum and said, in this conversation between these 3 new members, hey, why are we pushing Harvey Milk onto second graders? What's the structure of that? What are we teaching them about Harvey Milk? And then one of the members said, isn't he a pedophile? So why are we holding him up to these kids as a hero? And it ignited a firestorm. Gavin Newsom called out this little school board, but we had one of those school board members on with us yesterday, and she's holding her own. And they are standing firm in the fire and saying, hey, we want to go back to the core lessons. We don't want activism in our schools. That's not what school was for. And so we are seeing these small victories, and our encouragement is it doesn't end when we flip the seats. You got to continue to show up to the school board meetings, show up to your city council meetings, support the people who are in there and in the fight, instead of just pulling out and saying, okay, we want a seat. It doesn't end there, because now the machine will go after her and these school board members who are pushing over their golden calves. But we are seeing success outside of the call to actions, against the corporations. But we believe in the grassroots political movement and starting small and building from there. And we're seeing success with that.
Yeah. And one other thing is we're seeing a shift in language where we just came out guns blazing, where you and everybody had a hard time with it probably in January. And now we're seeing everybody call this what it is. So, the cult loves to change.
Isn't that awesome to see it when you get to change language? Like, we'll do little language shifts. Like, I'll rename whole types of legislation, and then all of a sudden you'll see it in print. And you're like, that's so funny. Like, I wish I had written that down.
Yes. Kristan,
it's
you know
cool
what
to see
you
the
said
language
once
shift.
that I told the girls I absolutely loved? You coined something, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love what she said. You were in a debate with a college girl, and I watched it, and she was saying that you were abortion phobic or something. And you just spun it and thought, and you're like, well, you're fetophobic. You're fetophobic. And she hated
that triggered her.
but you just kept
Oh my
using it.
gosh.
And I was like, you go. That's how you take back language.
Yeah. No, I was just in a debate at the Whatever podcast, and the gentleman we were debating, or I should call him a gentleman, the man child, we were debating against. He visibly couldn't handle calling the child a child in the womb. Like, it was like triggering him. He's like, you're using emotion, not science. And I'm like, okay, well, fetus. What does fetus mean? He's like, I don't care about Latin. I'm like, okay, fine, fetus, young one. But yeah, no, language does matter, and I think that's what's so exciting, and to see, just how your all's mission has taken off in the past few months of people really, saying yes. These women are saying exactly what I've been thinking this whole time. Like, yes, I'm going to share their content. Yes, maybe I'm going to now, feel compelled to take action. Have you guys experienced, though, since you started this, and you guys are fairly new at this, have you experienced some of the hate yet?
Oh,
I have.
We're really good at blocking.
It
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, I've had,
Is it-
I've had male family members say, trans men don't bother you. I cannot think of a more misogynistic thing to say to a woman. And I'm finally speaking out on this and horrified by this. And I have men in my own family on both sides saying, they don't bother you. It's the most disgusting, vile, anti-feminist, regressive statement you could ever put on a woman. And it makes my blood boil, in case you can't tell.
But what we've learned, Kristan, is that you can't argue when we debate someone, like for instance with you, they cannot debate us because they know that they don't stand on any truth. Like, we stand on truth, capital T, and objective truth, not subjective truth. Truth is not just the way you feel. And so when we go back and forth with these trolls on Instagram, they go radio silent because they're not going to win the argument. When we say you are born XXXY, period, this story, you cannot become a woman. Womanhood is not a costume. It is not something that you can, we coined the phrase woman face. Like, why is it that woman face is tolerated?
That was you.
Like,
good job. I've used that. Thank you.
Yay!
Gary.
You go. Use that all day long.
Use it, baby, because that's what it is. Woman face is going on, and we're saying it is not acceptable. It is not okay to mock women. Basically, what you're saying is that, you know, womanhood is just a costume that you can just put on, and lipstick and high heels. And ultimately, it is so misogynistic. What Melissa was saying, you know, these trolls on Instagram, they are so misogynistic, and all we're saying is that, you know, women have to rise up and reclaim what it means to be a woman and not apologize for it. We are not going to apologize for it. We women deserve to stand up for our rights as women. Our great grandmothers have fought, and our grandmothers have fought so that we can have these rights. And we are not going to surrender these rights. We are not giving them one more inch. We are reclaiming language. We are reclaiming territory, and we're doing it in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Take me to church, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
No, I think that's so important, and I just want to encourage you guys, because I can only imagine the amount of hate that you get. I was on campuses this spring, and we did a top 10 lies pro-choicers believe was my speech, and we had a little sandwich board, and it was amazing to me. I just threw in one of the top 10 thing was men can have babies, and that by far was got the most hate. That is when they lost their minds. I had pro-choice women agreeing with me on most of my points, even like agreeing with me that, you know, chemical abortion pills are bad for women. I had them agreeing with me that hormonal birth control is terrible for women's bodies, and no one ever talks about it. But then that one point, that threw them all off, because I said men can't have babies. And it was just like this light bulb. And you would see these transgender, you know, activists coming for the table on campus, and my security crew like stepping in front of me. Like, it was just, just even saying that phrase, men can't have babies, or men don't have a uterus. It's unbelievable. So I can only imagine the amount of hate you guys get, because you guys are doing this every single day.
We're saying it out loud. You know, Carrie and I, we went to a meeting a few months back, right when we launched Battle Cry. And it was because there was a dude in the girls' YMCA locker room naked, and he was pretending to be a woman wearing woman face. And we went into the Lion's Den that night, and that was a big eye opener for Carrie and I to see, whoa, these people, this is a religion to them.
Yes.
Like, this is a complete cult takeover. And they were unhinged. The hatred was so, you could feel it in that room. But and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is count the cost. You know, we believe in a mighty God who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and who walks before us. And we have such confidence in that we are victorious in this battle, that the victory's already been won. And we do see this as spiritual warfare. And I think if you've missed that, you've missed the plot line. That's why there's such deception. That's why we're at a point where, like you were just saying, people lose their minds over us saying men can't have babies. A man can't be a woman. You can't do that, because it's become such a religion to these people. And realizing that we're walking in spiritual territory honestly makes me and my co-founders so much stronger, because we know that we are standing on objective truth, and it's undeniable. They can argue all they want. They can scream and call us, the big word was TERFs. I didn't even know what that meant, but they can scream all they want. But at the end of the day, we've already won, and we're just going to keep proclaiming that.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that drives them nuts. That drives them nuts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, these individuals are victims inherently. And I mean, some people may disagree with this. We do all have a choice, but really, in thinking about like what you're seeing on college campuses and how people are just totally losing their minds over hearing truth, they are victims of these lies and this evil that has come to convince society that we are the upside down. And so we are waging war against that evil, not these victims. So these children that are in their 20s who have it all backwards, We're going to love them and pray for them and pray that, you know, God can really take the veil off of their eyes and open their ears to hear. Because that's what we're dealing with here. And it doesn't seem loving to somebody from the outside who's been brainwashed by that. We seem hateful. That's what I've been called, but it's not. And it's standing firm. And like you're doing, Kristan, you are such an example of someone that stands firm, and it is loving to go to these campuses and have a conversation with them that is so uncomfortable, and you're disrespected in a way I'm horrified by. But that is actually loving. And I hope and pray that in 10, 20 years, this generation can see like, no, we actually did the right thing, even in the face of adversity.
Yeah, and love doesn't compromise. Love isn't like this soft compromising, let's play patty cake with pronouns to make you feel better. Like love is firm and bold, and we can wear a dress and do that at the same time. We don't have to play and placate lies. We can call them out.
That's amazing. I'm actually writing down some notes because you're helping me write a speech in my mind right now, lady. So thank you. I think it's just this concept of a firm and bold love that sometimes gives you bruises. What do you? I guess my last question would be more of a personal question of what do you think your all's activism of stepping up and being that voice and giving that voice to that silent majority and helping that silent majority hopefully find their voice. How do you think that's affected your children? Like, do you think that, you know, your children aware of what mom's talking about? Like, I'm sure they probably hear you on phone calls, or my kids. I mean, I know when talking about abortion, I have 4 children. My one son hears everything. I think I have another son who tries to ignore everything. I have 2 ones who kind of question, why would, and I often think about, what is the example that I'm leaving for my children that I hope that I'm instilling in them. But how do you think that's affected your all's lives with your children?
I can't answer it because I'll cry.
Carrie, I want to hear what you would say.
I know that means you need to answer, Carrie.
Yeah, sorry, Carrie, you got the mic.
I just feel like, this is why we're doing this. Just like you, Kristan. We're doing this because we care not only about our children, but about children and about all the children in the world who are in the mother's womb or already born. And we want to pass the torch one day. And we want to say, here you go. Now you go run the race. And I hope and pray that my kids look back one day and say, my mom stood, when a lot of people didn't stand because they were worried about what people thought. They worshiped, man's approval and not God's approval. And I just want to be obedient. I want to obey God's word. I want to be loving and a truth teller. And so I can say, for the rest of the girls here at the Battle Cry, we just want to share the truth and pass the baton one day to our children and have them run the race and run it well.
That's awesome. That's a great way to wrap up this podcast. I thank you all for all that you guys are doing. You guys, you ladies are an amazing duo. And I can't wait to continue to follow your all's journey and how you're going to inspire tens of thousands of parents and Christians across the country to rise up and fight against this cult of radical gender ideology. So Britt, Carrie, Melissa, thank you all for joining me. Where can everyone find you and get your podcast and get all of your good information you're putting out?
Okay, so you can follow us primarily, and I'm glad you asked because we're being highly censored on Instagram. We finally have arrived. So we kind of built out of Instagram, but we are moving more into other options. So you can find us still on Instagram for now at @thebattlecry_US. Same thing on Twitter. We're moving more into Twitter. And coming soon, we're actually going to be launching a series of conversations that will be hosted over on Twitter. So we're really, really excited about that. We've got some great guests lined up. Kristan, we would love to have you come join us. We'll flip the seats really soon. But just conversations that matter, because we feel like that's been something missing in the dialogue, is actual conversations, sitting at a table and just having disagreements and hashing it out. So you can find us both on Twitter and Instagram right now, and also www.thebattlecry.com. activism.org. And thank you, Kristan, so much for being such an example of a warrior who stands firm just in the lion's den. And we know that our Father stands with you. And we're so thankful for the good work that you're doing and so many lives that are being saved because of your work. It's echoes of eternity. So thank you for having us on.
Thank you
and for
so
the work
much.
that you're doing.
Keep me in your prayers, and I'll keep you all in my prayers.
Yes, we will be
Agreed.
praying for you.
You're front
All right.
lines.
Well, thank you all for
Everybody
tuning in. Oh, sorry, Melissa.
Thank-
What were you going to say?
I just said everybody needs to support you because you're a frontline warrior.
Yes, you are, girlfriend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
We're so
appreciate
proud
that.
of you.
Well,
We stand
thank
with
you all so much. Thank you. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. I hope this conversation is helpful for you. Make sure you follow the Battle Cry on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm so excited for their new conversations on Twitter. I'm going to be making sure I go to Twitter right now and follow them. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you share this episode. Bye.